Hey guys, I recently had the opportunity to play in another OTB over the board tournament. I'm excited to share the live footage with you. I have a special guest to do the commentary on the games, International Master Andras Toth. He's a fellow content creator. He's a Chessable author. You guys are going to enjoy his commentary. I think you're going to like some of these games. I did my best to play exciting chess that hopefully you can appreciate. And I'll see you guys in round one.
Hello to the chicos, hello to the chicas. This is International Master Andras Toth, and you are probably wondering what on earth is this guy doing on this channel. Well, here we are, my friends. So we are basically cooking up a collab, Nelson and I, and since his collaboration with Mr. Chess Mood was quite an interesting one, Nelson actually offered me to do something similar and provide a commentary on his most recent tournament, which was the Texas State Open. A couple of words about myself while the gentlemen in front of us are still waiting for kickoff. So I'm an international master, born in Hungary. I have been living in Australia now for almost 2 decades. I'm dominantly a chess coach, and that is, by the way, the assumed role that I'm going to pursue or use as an approach toward the game and the commentary. And I'm also a content creator. I've got a YouTube channel, Chess Coach Andras. That one is, I also stream, and I'm a very prolific Chessable author with many Chessable courses to my name. So everything chess I do, and this is my life, this is my passion, and this is my profession as well. So yeah, that is about me. So in the first round, by the way, he's facing a young opponent who goes by the name of Ahan Cesaria, who is noticeably lower rated than Nelson, but these things mean very little, especially when you are facing a youngster like Nelson is, and Nelson is behind the black pieces, and 1d4 is kicking off. Now, I don't know Nelson's opening repertoire. I must admit to you guys, and I'm not going to do this, but I already regretted it. I did look at this game before I started the recording. Nelson sent me the entire library, and in hindsight, I already regret it because I would much rather be living in a moment with you guys and watch the game as it unfolds rather than knowing what is about to come. But lesson learned, I'm definitely not going to do that for round 2 and onwards. So yeah, we'll take it from here. So yeah, d4, knight f6. Now, I really don't know what Nelson's main repertoire against 1d4 is. If I'm not mistaken, he tends to play the French against 1e4. And he seems to have a very enterprising and attacking chess style, which, by the way, slightly contradicts the French as a choice. So if I were his coach, I would probably try to talk him out of that. Because, yeah, if you think about aggressive openings and aggressive styles, the French is not exactly the best possible fit there. But that is perhaps something for Nelson to consider. Yeah, so now we have got d4, knight f6 on the board, c4, and knight c6. Oh my word. So now we have got the famous black knights tango, the 2 knights out right away before any other pawn moves. Now, this is a very provocative opening. It's not unsound, but there is a reason why you don't see many world champions playing this opening. The idea is to provoke white into pushing many pawns forward, chasing the knights, and then trying to prove that in fact this is an overextension in the center that then black seeks to undermine, for example, by pinning the knight, thus attacking the pawn on e4. And for example, here, e5, knight e4, and now white is already looking pretty badly off, because not only is the c3 knight hanging with knight c3, bishop c3, but also the cheeky queen h4 check is incoming. And so this is a textbook case of how white is already losing the grip on the game. So yeah, this is definitely the idea, and white needs to be cautious and just hold the horses. They played knight c3, one of the best responses. I personally prefer to play knight f3 against this setup. and try to stir the game toward some kind of Queen's Gambit setups after e6, and then whether it's knight c3 or g3, even a3 is a popular move here, by the way. That's my go-to. The reason for that is because knight c3 as per game allows e5. And that kind of central friction is something that I would like to deny from black, hence my choice of knight f3 here behind the white pieces. So I'm quite happy for Nelson to face knight c3 instead, because now we can just kick off proceedings with e5. Now, once again, I would like to stress though that as much as I am liking the idea of playing something offbeat, which is certainly not far from Nelson's chess style, this is not an opening that I would recommend anyone to build a repertoire around. Like, this is fine to throw it in once in a blue moon, but as a main go-to, this is not going to suffice. And indeed, e5 has landed. So why is e5 the move that we want to play? So here are a couple of issues with this, or rather a couple of ideas for this position. So white wants to play e4, dominating the entire center. We can't let that happen. So as much as we wanted to provoke pawn moves, now black has to show up to the center one way or another. Now, if we play d6, then after knight f3, d5, we are re-entering a Queen's Gambit decline with black, where the knight on c6 is misplaced. In general, d4 openings, knight and knight should go in front of c-pawns. And now we are going to pay a bit of a price for knight c6 being played too soon, being placed in front of the c-pawn. We can't complete now that pawn triangle that we so badly like to do in the Queen's Gambit. If I play d5 right away, then unfortunately here we have to reckon with take, and then even e4 is an idea here, take, and now maybe if e5 is playable, but if that's not on, then once again white is dominating the center. And perhaps, better still, after knight d5 is to play knight f3 first, to completely eliminate e5 ideas, and then e4. And so black is pretty much down to e5. There's nothing else we can do to bite into the center, and again, we are hoping to provoke this, after which the knight is going to jump to e7, then to g6, then the bishop gets deployed to one of these two squares, excuse me, and then black completes development with d6. One of the biggest issues here that black might have to face is that after knight f3, knight g6, white has got a super pesky move here, which is h4. This is really, really annoying. The idea, of course, is to push the pawn to h5 and further harass the knight on g6. And if we play h5, then unfortunately, now we have surrendered the g5 square to the white pieces entirely, and we likely have to develop the bishop to e7 instead of the desired c5 or b4 in order to break the pin. And once that pin is broken, white can play g3 or even e4, and now again the black's position appears to be very, very passive. Now I'm going on a tangent, very typical, but the game is following the path of takes, and knight takes back. Okay, so an interesting thing now is that the c4 pawn is hanging, but white might not need to defend it. We can try to turn it into some kind of gambit by playing knight f3, trying to tempt black to take and then play e4. This is the ultimate Morphy style of chess that everyone needs to learn first. In my opinion, if this is missing from your understanding of chess, the dynamism, the willingness to give up pawns for development and central control, that's a crucial lesson missed. So here, knight f3, absolutely cooking move. Knight c4, e4, bang. This is hanging. I pull back to b6, e5, and we are already on the verge of defeat because both knights now have been pushed around meaningfully. Black has no development whatsoever. And yeah, like bishop g5 is looking very good. Bishop d3 followed by castle. And even a4 with the idea of a5 trapping the knight no less. Hello. Is also very cheeky. Pretty cool that we brought this idea up from both ends. And so after knight f3, likely the best move is capture, which brings me, by the way, to my second point, which is a lot of people would refrain from playing knight f3 on account of, ooh, but then we have double pawns. No one cares. Double pawns are not inherently good or bad. And a lot of people, especially on lower rating levels, think that double pawns are bad. That's total nonsense. A lot of scenarios occur in chess, in many, many openings, where we have got double pawns and we are perfectly happy with them. And this is not necessarily an exception to the rule. Now we have got an open g file to work with, and e4 is very, very easy to carry out. And on top of that, once I play e4, I can then back it with f4, and my 3 pawns are going to dominate, absolutely dominate the center. By the way, this is one of the topics that I regularly revisit on my YouTube channel. There are a fair few videos there about how many club players don't understand what is to be known about double pawns, which fundamentally is that they're not bad. They're not bad at all. There are certain situations when they can be bad, but that is not the general rule. The same way how an isolated pawn is also not a bad thing per se. Anyway, that was a massive tangent, and if I'm not mistaken, my friend, no, our non-friend, played e3. So he wanted to defend the pawn after all. Welcome to the Chicken Chess Club. Yeah, knight f3 was definitely the move, and I have no doubt in my mind that Nelson wouldn't have taken this. So likely either it would have been take. Actually, there is no either. Or maybe actually there is. Maybe just pull back and then bishop c5 or bishop b4. Yeah. Okay, so now after e3, bishop b4 appears to be a no-brainer to me. We need to develop pieces. That's the best square for the bishop. I would play this move without, too much hesitation at all. It's just, let's go. The question more so, in my opinion, is that what do we do after, for example, bishop d2? And now, by the way, we can resume the conversation about double pawns. So here, if let's say white plays knight f3, now bishop takes b takes is a different kettle of fish. Because these buggers, these guys are also isolated. And that makes them tremendously weak. Which is a very cool comparison to this batch here, which is very compact. They work beautifully together, right? But this batch here, now that is going to be a long-lasting problem. In particular, the c4 pawn after like d6, bishop e6 is going to be an easy target. So black can feast on this, can do nothing about that. But as such, after bishop b4, I would anticipate either queen c2 or bishop d2. And now black is actually enjoying a little bit of a lead in development, but we have got some spatial issues because we have got 0 pawns in the center and the c4 pawn clamps down on d5. Yeah. I don't know, I would like to offer you ideas or concepts here as to what Nelson is thinking about here. But once again, bishop b4 and nothing else makes sense to me. I could go to c5, but we're biting into granite here. It just seems to me like a misplaced piece. It's probably the second best square, but the second best is the first bad, right? So, yeah. Oh, I'm talking, and good old Nelson uncorked g6. Okay, now this is interesting. That was definitely not on my horizon. But I don't dislike it. There's a very good argument to be made for putting the bishop on the long diagonal, even if it costs us an extra move. I wanted to ride this pony of lead in development as best as I could. Yeah, g6 is a valid alternative, but it kind of stirs the game in a very different direction. And speaking of style, I don't know how much it fits into what Nelson likes to do. And by the way, I did tell you I did see the game, but I still didn't quite recall that it was g6 play. Now, of course, in hindsight, I do. And he's going to follow it up with a double fianchetto, which again, somehow if we played, let's say, here, and now b6, this setup to me makes more sense than putting both of them there. But okay, let's see. g6 played. And it is our opponent's turn. So we can still give in to the temptation of trying to expand in the center like mad. And ironically, in this position, instead of the logical looking bishop g7, bishop c5 is the best diagonal for the bishop, cutting out kingside castle, denying bishop e3. And yeah, black is doing splendidly well there. So instead knight f3 or perhaps even bishop e2 is to be preferred here. But I don't like f4. I don't mind... let me just make it main line. How did Avetik pull this off so fluidly and I'm like all over the shop? Okay, so he plays knight f3. Reasonable. Reasonable. But now the question is, how do we take back? And I'm slightly leaning toward the pawn again, but queen takes is also possible. But now I actually quite like Nelson's position. Bishop g7, bishop d3, castles, castles, and let's say d6. And this looks like a King's Indian where white hasn't played e4, and their pieces are a bit all over the shop. I would be very happy to play this with black, but the fact of the matter is that I'm a King's Indian player, so I feel at home in these types of positions. Now, to my, I wouldn't say use the word dismay, but I see that Nelson played queen e7. Now, I am a bit of a classicist in chess, and I love my chess principles. And as a result of that, I must take a stance against this move and just go like, not a fan. Not a fan at all. But I don't think that I have got any kind of refutations on the ready. One thing that would concern me here with black is that after knight e5, queen e5, now white is coming at us rather speedily with bishop d3. Let's say bishop g7, castles, castles. And if you compare this position to the one where we had the queen on f3, here the white army is quite coherently developed and white dominates the center. So I want you to compare this scenario to this one where I took knight on f3, yeah? Queen took back, bishop g7, bishop d3, castles, castles, and d6. This was my way of playing it, and here you can see that the bishop is stuck. If e4, then this pawn is weird because it wants to be here. Now I can pull the knight back, jump in on e5, pull the knight back, jump into c5. I can play rook e8, I can deny the pin. There is pretty much anything that I can do and everything I can do with black. It feels comfy. Now have a look at this, and now let's compare it to what the game continuation could have been, which was... sorry, I'm just constantly promoting these lines so that I have the correct story ahead of me. So e3, g6, and here after knight f3 we played queen e7. Yeah, so now once again, white gets the best of every single world. I don't have the clumsy queen on f3, I do have the bishop on d3, and my pawns are dominating the center. And after d6, for example, f5 with subsequent bishop g5, queen e1, queen h4 plans, this would be quite an oppressive situation. You are feeling like you're getting squashed here, and we need to be outstanding defenders here with black to withstand the pressure of this oncoming storm. Luckily, our opponent played here the very weird looking b3. It's very rare that when you see a fianchettoed bishop, the best way to treat it is to counter fianchetto against it. Usually it leads to not happy places. And the reason for that is because one side tends to end up in a pin. For example, knight f3, queen f3, bishop g7, bishop b2, and I go knight e4. And now there is drama here. Now, unfortunately, I'm talking absolute nonsense here because after knight d5, my queen and my bishops are hanging. But you get the gist, right? So if I play c6 and then after bishop e2, now after knight e4, black is better because there is too much stuff hanging here. And after queen takes, knight takes, bishop takes, we acquire the bishop pair. Now, because of the ugly c6 and the potential knight d6, even this may be a bit off, but you get the gist. This bishop is just not happy facing the fury of this guy here. Now, we don't have to take, by the way. We can just totally play bishop g7, and that is also cool, and that's exactly what good old Nelson is bringing to us. Now, bishop b2 are the two most rational moves, and of course white can still take on e5. Not quite sure what I would do. Probably bishop e2. No, young man plays bishop b2 and gives a sneaky look to Nelson. Fair enough. Interesting to note, by the way, that Nelson is playing very, very fast. If you look at the clock, he hardly used any time. And Nelson to think. And I think this is the point where he's going to play b6, which was the next move that I really, really didn't quite feel. I would probably take this. Queen takes and castles. Let's say bishop d3 and then d6. Castles and then bishop d7. No, can't do that because this is hanging, so I go c6 first. c6 is actually very handy anyway because it cuts out knight d5. And now I'm going to play bishop e6, and we have got a completely fine level position. Okay, so that would be my go-to. And the reason why I like to take this, by the way, right now, is because if I castle first, then after bishop e2 take this bishop is much better placed here than the queen. Right, so now I can use my queen with white to pile up on the d6 pawn. Something like this, develop, and then here and here. And it's a little bit annoying, right? But if we take on f3 first, then the queen is forced to take, and so there is no pressure on the d6 pawn that we saw before. So now this pawn is no worries whatsoever. Happy days. Yeah, this is the first big thing out of Nelson. Yeah, I think take is definitely the way to go. And if GF, by the way, then after castles, yeah, now I'm not a big fan. This would almost indicate that white wants to castle queenside. So you can do... Oh, this is awesome. You are going to love this, guys. So there is a few cheeky businesses here to consider after queen d4. So you would think that... oh, but that's super risky because... there is this attack here, and that is true. But let me show you a tactic that may change your mind. So let's say I go knight d7, book, check, and check, and all of a sudden white is winning. I can still avoid losing a piece by placing queen on f6, but after knight takes, this pin is absolutely lethal. And I just can never get out of it. And by the way, I already missed, I think, a win here with knight d5. When the knight can't take the knight because of the mate. So yeah, queen d4 does have a fair bit of venom to it. If I play knight h5, then the queen can just slide sideways, maybe just to e4. But even here, I have knight d5. Very fascinating variations. Takes, and then we lose a piece. So that's out of the question. We move the queen. That's a mouse slip. Note that the knight covers the bishop. Also note how amazingly I am drawing arrows. And now the queen has to retreat. And then after take, we are in a bit of a mess. Nelson is taking a fair bit of time here. b6. Obviously he wants to play bishop b7. typically when you play a move like this, the issue here is that it's neither developing nor is it contributing anything to the center, right? So in comparison, if I take castle and then I play d6, which opens up the bishop this way, my d pawn also covers important squares in the center, right? In contrast, when we play a move like b6, that is essentially a move that has zero added value other than facilitating bishop b7. And so you need to be very careful when you play moves like that, because sometimes they can backfire. Because it allows your opponent to basically do whatever they want. Here, for example, I'm quite worried about knight b5. And now we have got a bit of love coming down onto the e5 knight, but also down here. Yeah? So now I'm forced to take, but now after queen f3, the rook is hanging. And all of a sudden, we are in a bit of a pickle here. Not a big fan. Not a big fan of this situation whatsoever. And if we play d6, that begs the question of how do we justify then both of these pawn moves, right? Like we played b6 to put the bishop here. We shouldn't need to play d6, but now it's forced out of us. And again, here too, after knight takes queen f3, e4, maybe queen f4, and once again, just a bit too slow with the development, and it feels like we might be in trouble. It's a pretty wide line, knight h5, hitting queen, hitting bishop. But now after the check, if the king goes to the d file, then I've got a very cute way to defend this bishop, which is castles, and that's a check. Whereas if I go this way, then I can take with check. And once again, after king takes... Oh, actually, this is not too bad, because now the queen is hanging, and I can't just slide away anywhere. In fact, it's almost trapped, because it also needs to cover the knight. But of course, white has knight d5 here. And that also conveniently cuts out the check, so I can't just run away with the queen and then capture white's queen. And now the white queen is going to be able to play to one of these squares, depending on where this queen goes. So yeah, I didn't like b6 at all. Based on looks, and now I also dislike it based on calculation and trying to punish. Yeah, it's just a weird looking move, and as soon as something looks weird, the correct chess instinct is immediately to go after it as forcefully as you can. And so knight d5, knight b5 are the two candidates, but I guess knight d5 is no bueno, because take, and then we pick off b2. Now we go back to my initial statement that we very rarely counter fianchetto with a counter fianchetto, because these things tend to happen, and that's not a happy story. It's actually a cool line, because after bishop b2, queen a8, we don't take a1, because then we fall to this, we castle. And now white is completely cooked, because if I move the rook, check, and this king is going to get stuck in the middle. And white only has an extra exchange, which is nothing comparatively to the trouble that white is facing with this king. Okay, let's go back. I don't remember what young fella played here, but wouldn't be surprised if it was bishop e2. Yeah, knight b5 is definitely the move that would bring about a fair bit of heat and action. Oh boy, you really played that. Yeah. Ay, 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 ay. Ouch. Okay, I didn't remember this. So, I always tell my students, and this is a very important thing in my opinion to train people to when they try to improve their chess, that when a move is ugly, it usually is bad too. And rook b1 is a textbook case of a supremely ugly move, because like, what are you doing there? The very, very clear purpose of the move is to protect the bishop. But let's here also talk logic, right? What kind of threat did black pose with his last move to this bishop? Hello? Like, none whatsoever. So if we consider, and it's always a good thing to do, by the way, chess moves and the flow of a chess game as action, counteraction, or sentence response or question response, right? Then to respond to b6 with rook b1 is the same as like, what would you like to eat for dinner being answered by, yes, I did shut the garage door. Like there is a complete disconnect between the communication of what black is doing and white is doing. And so when you catch yourself doing something like that, you should very, very critically approach that and go like, surely, like, why would I need to do that? I'm completely baffled by this, even though I did point out lines where the bishop was hanging. But that was when white did something silly. And the other way to approach the exact same story, by the way, is that we are in the opening phase of the game. In the opening, you need to do two things. Control the center and develop your pieces. Right? If you find yourself that you're about to play a move that does neither of these two things, very likely you are doing something bad. Textbook. No development, no central control, a total pass. It has zero added value to the position. Bishop e2, even if we don't see knight b5, which would have been very nice, just bishop e2, bishop b7 castles, and I'm doing the things I'm meant to do. Development, and now I'm going to shove castle under that category too, and that's it. I am done. I have ticked all boxes that I was supposed to. Now I'm ready to fight. And white with his superior central control is definitely slightly better here. No question. Now after rook b1, if Nelson is not falling off his chair, which he hasn't done, we can now come up with some ideas. But because we have got very limited space in the center, I don't really see it feasible that we can punish white for this. I mean, bishop b7 appears to be a no-brainer. But now we figure out that there was a little sneaky trick behind this. And that was that after knight e5, queen e5, the knight has a sexy jump to d5, and the bishop is not hanging on b2. And this, friends, brings me to another point, that very often, even bad moves have a cheeky point to them, which is not to be underestimated, which I have just done. So bishop b7 is definitely not playable. So now you go like, aha, we have a problem. The problem is that white is threatening to take, and jump the knight. So logically, we would be like, okay, well then let's take. But that brings about a problem, which is, tada, that this rook is hanging. So, we can't really take, we can't really leave it hanging. That leaves us with, let's protect it. I really wanted to hammer this move a lot harder for what it did and what it didn't accomplish, but it turns out that we can't really. Technically we could play knight c6, but I think it would be very much not in the spirit of the position, and so d6 is the move that I would mostly anticipate out of Nelson here. I'm trying to think if there's a world where I can sell some cheapy tricks like knight g4 with the idea of knight f2, but knight d5 is coming, and h3 was also playable, so yeah, it has to be d6. Nelson goes back to c6. Okay, so I'm trying to figure out why he did that, and I'm thinking that maybe he might have been a little bit worried about this move. Hitting the rook, thinking that if e4, then knight e4. Oh, wow, this is so cool. So e4 actually is very good for black here, because after knight e4, I can take knight e4 because bishop here is met by check and mate. Hello? But I was just trying to figure out what the reason might have been why he opted to come back instead of d6. Now, I don't know if he saw that this was on or not. It's not on. And so consequently, white's best is probably bishop d3. But I don't see any problems for black here. In fact, I almost prefer black here, because now we have got better central control. Due to the pawn on e5, we have got rook d8 coming. This bishop is marvelous, as are my arrows. No whackers. That's an Australianism for you, no whackers. That's no worries in a very lowly educated way. Yeah, knight c6, I just... yeah. Not a fan. In general, I always tell my students that when we are going backwards, we are always doing something wrong. Now, it's not fundamentally bad. But for example, I'm really, really worried about knight d5 now. If knight d, then obviously g7 is hanging. This is the first time when it backfires on us, the fianchetto story. So we have to drop back to d8. And once again, when I go back, followed by go back, usually that is where I draw the line and I go like, not interested. I do not want to do this. Because the natural progression in the early phase of the game, once again, is development, moving your pieces out, go forward. And now we are continuously moving backwards. No bueno. Absolutely no bueno. So the more I look at it, the more I think that Nelson must have thought that something was amiss about knight takes. So he must have missed knight d4 here. Wait. No, sorry. Wrong line. d6, not knight f3. d6. Take, and then queen f3. And he missed d4. That's what I was meaning to say. Yeah. Okay, so knight c6, and now I'm really, really worried about knight d5. Like, super, super worried. Queen back. And literal any move for white here. Like bishop e2, queen d2. Even some wild stuff like g4 may actually be very interesting. But just keeping the ship steady with bishop e2 is totally fine, because black can never take d5. Because I just simply, I don't know if I want to insert this or not, but maybe just take this, take, and yeah, like this is what we call backrank fest in the biz, and this is not something you want to have 15 moves into the game. This is really, really bad news. So, yeah, this was definitely a game that Nelson should reflect on later on after the tournament. I think he risked too much. He might have thought that he was playing down more than 200 rating points. He needed to play something quirky, but you always need to find that fine line of how far you can go with playing quirky without risking too much. And this is definitely a difficult scenario and challenge. Ooh, he did play knight d5, and we drop back to d8. Okay. Now, the sad thing about this from my perspective as a commentator is that I was hammering rook b1, and this line that we see on the board fully justifies rook b1. Right? Because there is no line where the bishop would be hanging now. But that was because our play was a little bit lacking here with black, with not playing d6 and then pulling back to c6 afterward. Or first rather pulling back. Yeah, g4 is definitely the ballsiest move available to white. So the idea here is that we want to play g5, force the horse hoppity hop to h5, trade the bishop, and then jump onto f6, utilizing that the pawn is supporting the f6 square and provides a bit of a springboard. Let me show you a potential variation. So take, and now boomski. That hurts, because now we lose castling rights. If I play castles here, then we go still g5. And if I don't take, then again take, and now I might have to take with the king. If I take this way, again, knight check or h4, and then knight check is quite hurtful. So yeah, this is a bit wild, but playable. And also it's playable, by the way, g3, with the idea of wanting to put the bishop on this diagonal. We can't really say anything untoward about that move either. Yeah, I wonder what the young fella is thinking here. He spent a very hefty amount of time, his longest stint in the game. Somewhat fair, because he has pulled ahead, and so now it is a good time to try to ensure that we solidify the advantage that we have. Oh, he's about to pull the trigger. And plays bishop d3. The only reason why I don't necessarily like bishop on d3, or rather I should word it that I prefer it on g2 or e2, is because it disconnects the queen from the knight. Now, how big of a deal is that? Probably not really. I just would castle here. But I feel like this move doesn't quite put too much pressure on us. Like now it feels that black has a fair few easy moves to play. So we are going to play castle, then we are going to play d6, and then we are going to put the bishop somewhere or other. The only good reason to put the bishop on d3 is because we might want to, after the trade, put it on e4. But if that's the case, then white definitely should have opted for firing from afar rather than entering the main stage of the battlefield in the center, because the bishop is going to be very clumsy on e4. Nelson played something fast. He played bishop b7, yeah? So bishop d3, and we went bishop b7. Yep, logical move. Having seen the knight on d5, I wasn't 100% committed to this. I would have played castles and d6 first, and depending on what white did in the interim, I would have then decided what to do with my bishop. Because, yeah, it may look obvious that it belongs to here, but if we want to be very honest with ourselves, this bishop is not doing too much here. So again, I would anticipate castles, and then some queen move maybe, queen c2, queen d2. Not queen c2, because then take knight b4 may be on. Yeah, queen d2. And then d6. Yeah, it's totally fine. White has a slight edge, but nothing more. Nothing more. And he's gonna tuck. Now that is the first move that I very strongly dislike for white. And I say that, but I already strongly dislike rook d1. Why is that I dislike this? Here we are experiencing a very interesting concept in chess, which is called tension. When pieces can mutually capture each other, it is called tension. Generally, we talk about tension when it comes to pawn tensions in various openings. And usually tension is something that you want to retain and only release when you benefit from it. And here, white does not benefit whatsoever from these trades. As a matter of fact, the opposite is the truth. Because white has more space, it's black's interest to trade. Right? So, and I can never really take this with black, which is what makes this what chess language often refers to as positive tension from white's perspective, because white can take here anytime they want and black can never take here. And the reason for that is because then the pawn steps up. Yeah, so let's say castles, whatever I take, the pawn steps up and kicks the knight. It makes the position even worse. So white never has to worry about taking here, but black constantly has to reckon with, but what if they take? And that's exactly why this tension is beneficial to white, and thus it should never be released like this. Never, ever. Tension is a good friend of yours. People often, especially lower rated players, they get tired of having to constantly calculate the consequences of the take on every single step they play, and so they go like, stuff it, I just take this. Because then I might not blunder later on. But this is not really conducive to good chess and good chess habits, because this is an asset. And so I'm not giving it up. Not even if I have to reckon with takes on every single move. I have time, I have skill, so I will do that. I'm not giving it away. No, thank you. Serious strategic misunderstanding here. Also, note that this has resolved one of black's biggest problems, which was the queen placement and the tension on the diagonal. And lo and behold, the possibility of queenside castles has opened up, which, by the way, is a very much like the method of playing chess of our good friends Nelson's, and so is mine, by the way. It's a very good way to inject a bit of extra imbalance into the position, which is definitely what you want when you are facing a far lower rated opponent than yourself. And indeed, Nelson castles queenside. And for the first time in this game-ish, I prefer black. And the reason for that is because now we have a coherent position, good piece placement. We have traded off 2 pairs of pieces, so white space advantage is neither here nor there. And if they castle here, then I've got an easy rook e8, kicking the bishop. And yeah, nothing bad can happen to me. Or if I want to go absolute gangbusters, which I'm sure Nelson would like to do as well, then let's go, baby, and start rolling those pawns and hurt this king. But it feels like now black is the one calling the shots. Yeah, I don't really see what he's thinking about, because castles is the only legal move on the board, right? Let me see. Yep. Castles approved. Genuinely baffled by the time usage of a young fella here. I mean, as good old Ben Feingold would say, what else? Like, there was no other move on the board, man. Your king is in the middle, let's go. And now the onus is definitely on our good friend Nelson. And once again, knowing how he likes to play chess, I would be very surprised if he didn't start lunging forward with the foot soldiers on the king's side and try to wreak havoc. What have you got cooking now? Oh, g5, you the man. You the man, Nelson. You the man. I'm bringing on the love. The reason why he may have refrained from h5, by the way, is because h4 awkwardly shuts down the kingside operations. And we don't want that. What we want is fluidly rolling pawns forward, forward, forward. And happy days. At this point, I'm quite excited about how this game is going. Sorry, I'm just still keep on promoting lines. Yeah, g5. Winner, winner, chicken dinner. As we like to say it here in Down Under. What is my young fella to do here? We can do the reverse of the pile up on the long diagonal that I showed you earlier. And we can pile up here. It also happens to hit the pawn. And if we go forward, then I can introduce now some new trade ideas, this time on c6. That is an incredibly beautiful concentration of white pieces in the center. And if knight a5, then we can just slide to f5 without too many dramas. So that's a possibility. I don't remember that that's what the our young friend did. I don't think it is. If I want to do my own pawn march, I could do b4, but it's not really going to accomplish an awful lot. Oh, and of course, then we can also just renew our membership at the Chicken Chess Club and try to trade off everything and head for a very drawish endgame. So let's see. Let's see what is cooking. Did he just do that? Yes, he did. He paid the money and he proudly introduced, or rather announced, yes, I would like to extend my membership at the Chicken Chess Club. So this is obviously a move that with which your opponent signals to you that they are very, very happy with the draw, which, for example, would be a likely outcome after take, 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 and take, take. And we have got a dead even looking rook ending, although he d5 would actually bite into the pawns perfectly well, likely causing at least an isolated pawn, but let's be honest with ourselves, this is almost certainly not winnable. The interesting thing psychologically from Nelson's point of view here is, again, to go for moves that allow you a playable position where your superior skills can still come to the fore without risking too much. And for example, this is actually a textbook example, because here queen d4 is super easy to play in the hope that, yeah, trade, and then we trade everything off on the e file, and then you get hit by d5, and all of a sudden, panic can easily creep in here. For example, rook d1, and then rook e8. Now you can't oppose on the e file, because then I take, and I take, and then the d4 pawn is Gonski, and so is the game. But if you can't oppose, then what do you do? Right? If you play f3, that's a logical move, so that rook e2 can be met with rook f2. Then I might be able to start doubling up on the pawn. It is still unpleasant, likely drawish, But this is the type of stuff you would want to get into with black because it's not losable and you have got realistic chances of playing for a win. This is what we call in the bids the playing for two results, when we eliminated the possibility of a loss entirely. Mind you, I casually omitted the fact that ED4 is also playable here for white, keeping the queens on. Also looks drawish, but still, rook e8, and again, they can't oppose on the file because take and then d4 drops. So black is still a little bit ahead here. Teeny bit, but ahead. Good friend Nelson decided to play h5 here. Look, it's consistent. It kind of is logical, but I think that 94 is the point when we have to resign ourselves to the fact that this is going to be an end game, not an exciting middle game scenario where we attack them on the king side and they attack us down here. And so as such, I can't really justify this move to myself because I really don't see where it is going at all. For example, if I play queen f3, now I am offering a queen trade. I'm turning up the heat even more on this square. And I would love to play queen g6, but I can't. Queen h6 is weird. It also hangs f7. All of a sudden, I ran out of moves. Maybe rook h6? But now, even this endgame doesn't look anymore as good as it did before because I didn't have to trade. And now again, we are having a case of a positive tension. Yeah, I don't dig h5, but I think it is a type of move where you are sort of throwing the ball back onto your opponent's court to say, do you have what it takes to play the best move? But if they do, then we might come back to regretting this slightly. It's not a mistake, it's not a bad move. Strategically speaking, it's perhaps not the most logical way to play. Okay, Dudski plays queen f3. And so now we are going to enter potentially an endgame scenario that is less desirable from black's perspective than this would have been. And this again is a great deal of strategic thinking. Because one thing is to realize that this endgame is a teeny bit better, but then you go like, yeah, but I don't want to play that against a 200 rated player, lower rated player than myself. But then at this point, people tend to forget that, okay, but if you play something else, then now we are still forced into an endgame, and your advantage here is going to be even less than what it would have been with knight d4. So, yeah, interesting to and froing of tournament strategy. Because here often are we talking, or often we are not talking about the objective value of the move, or not only about that, but about objective chances of us winning the game. And you could say that, yeah, but they had to find queen f3, to which the counter is that, yes, they did, but it wasn't exactly a difficult move even on 1800 level, right? Whereas an 1800, especially against the 21 FIDE, which what Nelson is, may very well struggle in an endgame like this, especially because... Siri woke up. Because they might think that, oh, easy draw. And then d5 hits you, then rook e8 hits you, and then all of a sudden you begin to panic. And so, yeah. Now instead we are looking at... h5, queen f3, and Nelson took on f3, which of course was potentially the only move. Both knight and bishop takes are possible, but knight takes is the better move, of course, because after bishop takes we can once again re-enter the same rook ending with some happy prospects. So I definitely anticipate here knight takes. Which also happens to be, by the way, a tempo because now g5 is hanging. And here g4, as much as it may look attractive because let's go and attack, no. The attack is over because the queens are off. And now we have to switch into endgame mode. And endgame mode here, for example, means that we should avoid as best as we can, fixing our pawns on the color of our bishop. Optimally, now your job is to put your pawns on the opposite color of your bishop. Because on the same color, it makes your bishop less effective and the pawns weaker. So g4 here, in my opinion, is a slight... It could lead to problems later on, is what I'm trying to say. And I would certainly play f6. Also note that once we play g4, we are now creating a lot of weak dark squares, which our bishop, by the way, can't control, which is why you want to keep your pawns on dark. Because if you keep them on dark, like this and this, then you created now white squared gaps in between them. But all of those, technically, can be covered by your light squared bishop. A bit of endgame and positional chess strategy for you right there. Okay, young man, let's take that queen back, shall we? No? Yes? No? Yes, he takes with the knight. And so I would prefer f6 here. But g4 is certainly playable. f6, very good, Nelson. I'm very proud of you for this choice. It's the conservative, but quite likely the better way to go about life. Young man is about to make a move. Rook d1 is logical. Rook c1 maybe is logical with the idea of playing c5. It's difficult to play a bad move. An interesting idea that I don't know if he played it or not, which is quite annoying from Brecht's perspective, is h4. And the concept is the same. White wants black. We want to provoke the push to fix the pawn on light squares. Note, by the way, that our bishop can target that, as in the opponent's. And still, there are weak squares on the dark squares around. So maybe I may be able to play knight e1, knight d3, knight f4. And again, tada, that's your weakness. So h4, in fact, is a very attractive idea, which is why I wanted to extend this pawn chain with h4 all the way up here. No, he hasn't found it. He plays rook b d1. Now I would play h4 without too much hesitation at all, because I'm really, really freaking out about this h4 possibility to bite into my pawns and fixing them on white. So now h4, and then we can start thinking about anything else. Ooh. Knight e7. Where are you going, Nelson? So, as usual, because I'm a simpleton, I don't like this move on account of going backwards. I don't like going backwards, so I dislike this move very strongly. I also do not understand the move because it forces the trade, which is fine. But then what's gonna be the story with the knight? And also now h4 again is quite problematic to meet. Because now after g4 I can jump into the center right away. And in every possible way, black is slightly worse off. The pawn structure on the king side is wonky. h5 may become a weakness later on. The knight is glued to e7, otherwise this knight comes in here. Our pawn majority on the queen side, 4 versus 3. d5 is the only thing I can do with that, but then knight e6 to knight f4 is absolutely deadly. So, yeah. Not a fan. Not a fan. This is the second time, and I'm not trying to create, you know, themes and patterns and all that jazz here, but this is the second time when Nelson went backwards with the knight in this game, and the second time when I have very serious misgivings about it. Sorry, I'm just trying to update the game. So we went f6, let's promote that. They went rook d1, let's promote that. And then we went knight e7. Yeah, I very, very much dislike this. h4, and then we can talk business afterwards. There was absolutely no rush to play this move. And I don't know if me dude is gonna play h4 or not, but yeah. What I'm thinking is that Nelson must have thought that he had d5 here coming and break up with the knight. So I don't know if he overlooked h4 here with the idea of coming in. And now d5 once again, I'm dreading this scenario. I'm absolutely dreading it. Here, and that knight is gonna be a royal pain in the back. Yeah, we split the white pawns, but white splits our pawns as well. So this is weak, but the relative weakness of a pawn is best determined by how easy it is to attack. And actually, it's surprisingly difficult to attack this pawn because I can never abandon the h-pawn. The knight can't attack it, and, well, my king is unlikely to climb up, especially because now I'm adding a bit more love here, and in fact now black is on the verge of defeat. So, yeah, 97, don't go backwards, folks. That's still the biggest mantra in chess. One of the biggest ones. The other one is put your pieces in the center. Brodsky, this is your board. Ah, yep, okay. Oh, no, wait, he took this, but now he's reaching for the rook. And he's very happily putting it on d3. Not the move I would have played, but it is perfectly understandable that he wants to dub up on the only file that has the potential to be cracked open. Since I love to sound like a broken record, h4. h4 is what Nelson should do here, else we are in trouble. Actually, knight g6 is also playable, but this allows knight d4, knight f5 ideas, maybe. It has to be either or. So it's either knight g6 or h4. h4 is obviously to cut out h4, knight g6 is also to cut out h4, but also to activate the knight. The problem with this position, and this is why I was arguing so heavily for entering that rook ending when we played d5, is that here it's borderline impossible to find a plan of any sort to play for a win. So we played d6. I very much dislike this move too, because it's none of the discussed moves that we talked about, and it's very passive. So now it seems to me that Nelson decided that he's just gonna sit it out, so to speak, and wait until his opponent does something dumb. So d6 announces that I don't have an intention to break the position with d5. I'm still very worried about h4, which is very clearly not on the horizon of either player. And with d6, Nelson might want to switch his attention to the very edge of the board, where he may be able to open up the A file and penetrate there. But it's very difficult for me to see how that could lead to anything and how it even could be pulled off, because a5, a4 can always be met by push. So for argument's sake, I will show you a line of what I'm talking about. So let's say I play a4, b4 is the correct response, take is terrible. So this splits the pawns into 3 isolated pawns, and now I can pile up on them with both of my rooks, likely win it, and then find a new target. If they don't take, then I can come here, or rather I should actually take it right away, and now we can obtain a newly created open file. This could be on his mind, I don't know, it's a possibility, but yeah, that is still concerning me. Knight to d4, hoppity hop. It's a good looking move, but it does absolutely nothing. Like knight e6 is occasionally something that you need to look out for. Oh la la. Yeah, he did offer a draw. Now, for the record, because I'm big on chess ethics, that is a big no-go. You're not meant to offer a draw when your opponent is thinking. That is technically disturbing your opponent. So the only way you can offer a draw is if you do it simultaneously when you carry out your move. So you play your move, you look up, I offer draw. This, halfway through my opponent's thinking, you just blurt out, oh, by the way, what would you think about a draw? Not on at all. Not on at all. And Nelson knocked it back immediately, and kudos to him for that. Now g6, logical, we are headed to e5. once again, nothing major is happening. I would play probably here f3, knight e5, pull the rook back, bring the king up, maybe e4, maybe king e3. Slightly pleasant, more pleasant for white, I would say, but no biggie. He jumped into f5, no worries, and Nelson rerouted his rookie d to e8. Okay, so he didn't want to bring this rook to e8 because of knight g7 is a double attack. A smart Alec remark to that would be that if he had played h4, that wouldn't be the case. But okay, rook here, no worries. And rook dub. I don't want to say h4 because you will hate me. Knight e5, also logical. a5, also logical. Okay, rook e5. No worries now. The only reason why I am a bit iffy about this is because it's basically asking the opponent to play here. And very clearly, Kido wants nothing but trades. And Nelson should want to avoid trades at all cost. So I'm not quite sure if this is as wise as we would like it to make look. I still would have played h4. And also, I seem to think that Nelson did not want to engage with this plan at all, which surprises me because it does have potential. So if you play a5, then as I explained earlier, the problem is that usually a4 can be met by b4. But if I chuck a knight on e5, that's going to tag the pawn on c4, which makes pushing past a little bit more challenging. Or, check this out. Let's say I play a pass, yeah? Knight a5. Now if the rook goes back, I have a4. And they can't push past, which means I managed to open up a new battlefield. Happy days. Okay, but what if they play rook d4? Well, then I go knight c6, kicking the knight, rook here, excuse me. And again, after a4, there is no b4. So again, we have accomplished something. So I really like the fact that Nelson knocks the draw back without hesitation. What I don't like is that he doesn't seem to have a constructive plan, a vision of how he could crack this up. And I really do think that a5, a4 is the only feasible plan to open a new battleground where he then could penetrate and find weaknesses. And yeah, this whole rook e5 Shimazoli tells me that he doesn't have that vision of going after black or of white. Sorry, going after white with a5 and opening up the board there. Oh, now he plays a5. So now it is on the cards. But this is definitely not in sync with rook e5. By the way, my favorite h4 is still playable. Yeah, okay. No, it's actually still doable because I still can swing across and play a4. So let's see. Let's see. Obviously, playing a4 is a bit of a concession because now if I can reroute the knight to c5, then that's going to be constantly tagging the b3 pawn. But I don't think it's a major mistake. He instead opts for a3, which is intended to meet a4 with b4. So this is the time when Nelson would want to be able to hit the c4 pawn. Right, so if we had the knight on e5 right now, which is why I didn't like rook e5, then a4 would be a very good move here. Very good move here. Just picture this, like I'm going to play some mumbo-jumbo moves. Then we do this trade, then another mumbo-jumbo, and now a4. And white is in a world of hurt. Because this pawn is on, and this is on. And the pawn structure collapses. This is why I didn't like rook e5. This is why we needed a5 here, and keep the e5 square for the knight. So Nelson had some right ideas, but he carried them out suboptimally. h4, yeah, that needed to be played about 15 moves ago. It's a useful move, and I'm very glad he did it because it cancels out h4. That was not a dark remark, by the way. It's just that I wish again that he had that vision ages ago. Still completely level, all good. h3 comes. I don't necessarily like that for white too much. There was no need to engage there at all. But it's very clear that white is just waiting. Like, he just wants Nelson now to either accept that it's a draw or to overcome it, over push, and make a serious mistake. Like, white could, for example, play for b4, but he has no desire to initiate any kind of fight whatsoever. Rook e8. Look, if I want to be honest, I would say that this was probably time enough for Nelson to cut the losses, offer the drawback, and walk away. And the reason why I'm saying it without wanting to spoil the outcome is because the queenside counterplay is very clearly gone. The rook trade has been on now for ages. The knight on g6 is frozen. It's not going anywhere. White still has very easy moves to play that are not going to ruin the position, and it just doesn't seem to me anymore that black has anything constructive to hurt white. He played knight g7, typical pass move. He wants to kick the rook goes, he's gonna go back to f5, excuse me, and give Nelson a knowing look of draw, mate, draw, it is a draw, buddy. I mean, we can take on e5, should we? Probably not. d5, excuse me. It's doable. Once again, nothing is gonna be changed by it. Like, take, and then rook e5 or rook e4. It's all G. No matter what we do, it should be a draw. We play rook a8, that's fine, but once again, unfortunately, this board has sailed. And that's probably the greatest regret that black might have in this position, is that we failed to make a4 a good and meaningful plan to disturb the balance. Now, if after knight f5, rook e4 is the last chance to try to sell this trick of a4 and then hit the pawn, but now we would fall victim of a beautiful tactic, rook d6, and it turns out that the two heavies are exactly a knight jump away, and now we lose. So let's not do that. Kiddo, wait, what did you do? Oh yeah, he jumped back to f5. I predicted the move. Yep, OG. Sorry, I'm losing my marbles. It's getting late here in sunny Australia. Yeah, there are so many factors here that will make Nelson want to play on. One of them is that he has got a huge lead on the clock. But again, the problem is that he's not playing a dummy, and this position doesn't really require a lot of time to just stay in the game and play accurate enough moves to not lose from white's perspective. So these are only siren songs that might tempt you to make the wrong call. Okay, we went back to f8. Obviously the knight is trying to reroute towards c5, either via d7 or e6. Knight h6. Okay. Not sure what he's doing there. I mean, I don't understand why he doesn't bring his king into the center. It's such an obvious choice to do. Knight on h6. Now I would just continue knight d7, knight c5, and let's see what's going on. Yeah, knight d7, good. And then Kiddo goes back to f5. Now we have knight c5. Okay, now we have got business. Let's have a look. Rook b1. Now I can change the structure by taking this. Don't think we should, but we could. Or I can activate the hoppity hop and go in here. Yeah, I still feel like we are fishing, but at least now we have got some targets. The pieces are passive. It feels like something is happening. Maybe is this a chess move? With the idea of take and then rook e5, and all of a sudden they can't defend this pawn. Hello? That's not bad. Yeah? Like, let's say pass, a take, you take back, and see, I wouldn't want to be, you're losing the pawn. Because rook d1 drops this. If you play b4, I can just play, maybe just take knight e4, and you can't defend this because I have got the bigger muscles. Huh. Cool, cool, cool. Okie dokie. Orky dorky. Come on, Nelson, let's go hoppity hop c5. Yes, he did. Knight c5. And Kiddo goes knight d4. Now, I didn't consider this. Okay. I have an absolutely outlandishly, wildly crazy idea. Check this out. If we go c6, they must take. Well, bear with me. They, assuming d6 is not hanging, they will have to take. And upon recapture, we have a d-file. Now, we can't play c6 because rook d6 is on. So we play rook d8, and now against the null move, c6 wins a piece because ta-da, lo and behold, oh wow, we caught them in a pin. So after rook d8, which is a genius, Karpovian genius move, now white is stuck. Because in order to undo this, they would need to move the knight. Can't do because that hangs the pawn. If the rook buggers off, then I can still play c6 tuck tuck tuck, and after the knight is Gonski, I can just penetrate with the rook, and again, winner winner chicken dinner. Brilliant. So the only question we have after rook d8, what a move, by dubs, is b4. Now let's say we take knight e4. Yeah, I dig it. I dig it. And now we can even go knight c3 to provoke the take. And again, we have the open file. Friends, what a move. Very difficult find. Very difficult find. It is a really, really tough challenge. Yeah, knight e4. Yeah, and rook d8 would have been a very, very genuinely great chance, excuse me, to win this game. Bugger. Now, does knight e4 ruin it? Not quite, but now I have knight b5, I believe, to prevent knight c3. And it also makes the c6 shenanigans not playable. Is our young man up for the task? No, he isn't. He took this. Okay, so we can take this way. It breaks the symmetry, something you want when you're playing for a win, but unfortunately it leaves a backward weak pawn here. Still, I prefer black here because the knight on e4 is a monster, and once again we have got chances of biting into the queenside pawn formation and play for a win. Doable. DE keeps the structure intact, keeps the pawn safe, but unfortunately it makes the pawn structure entirely and irreparably symmetrical. So probably this capture is the better one, given that we are the ones trying to pursue here some kind of winning hopes and plans. An interesting story here is something like a4, b4, and then b5. I actually love this idea. So as you can see, I'm trying to find ways to bite into the pawns and to single out a weakness. For example, after takes, I go knight c3. And now once I take this, the rook is going to be forever glued to this. Now if I want to, I can defend this first and then take the pawn. But better still, I might have here king here, king here, king here, king here, king here, and take. Which is pretty crazy long, but these are the types of chess plans you can and should have when playing an endgame. So yeah, overall I think the best way to play for a win is to break the symmetry, completely recreate, reform the pawn structure and start afresh. And that's what good friend Nelson has done. And here, now I need to click away for a sec to bring up the next video, folks. I didn't realize that this game was recorded in 2 bits. All right, so back with the second part. Yeah, a4 would be my move here with this b5 crazy wide plan. King c6 is also logical, preparing all of those things, playable and totally fine. Black is now clearly ahead. And now white's clock situation is going to be a factor too. Big thing on Nelson's side, and rightly so, by the way. There is a lot to do and a lot to consider. I really like this plan. Bang, 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 bang. Rook c1 may be an issue here. But then I reckon we have take, and d5. And when the rook goes back home, we can protect this pawn. And then we can play for king b6, c5. Okay, can I optimize this plan? Wow! Can I start with b5 to avoid this? And after cb play a4? Hello? That is genius. Absolute pure genius. Man, do I love this move. Takes a4. b4, knight c3, and ta-da, here we are again. Kinky, 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 kinky win. Maybe even now. Let them take, let's go. And then in. Can I do that though? Knight here and... Oh, now we go this with a bit of a detour. And now in. That is an incredibly beautiful activation. That is so nice. Wow. Unfortunately, Nelson played rook f8, which kind of misses the mark a bit. Rook c1, definitely a logical move by the opponent to trying to keep an eye on the pawns. The idea behind rook f8, by the way, was to glue the knight to f3 because now f2 is constantly hanging. The problem with that is that now both of our pieces are dedicated to the one target that we can't really over-attack. So it's a bit of a stale situation, a stalemate. And Nelson plays c6. Now that obviously floats various pawn pushes, but yeah, it almost actually hinders b5 because remember we didn't want to take back with the pawn. Yeah, I feel that here we missed an opportunity to either play a4 or b5. b5 would have been super sexy. Like, that is such a cool move and a really challenging one to find. But yeah, to break up the structure and to activate the king was absolutely imperative. And that's the downside, by the way, with what we are doing here, which is this c6 business, that it doesn't quite allow the black king to actively participate in the proceedings. Rook c2, pass, but it also defends the pawn, so now the knight is free to go. Logical choice. Now king a6, b5 is definitely on. And that actually still resolves the problem. Oh, no, Nelson, wrong way, buddy. Go this way. Here and b5. What I am worried about or unsure of... What do I even want to say? Yeah, I don't know why he's playing king c7. I don't understand the move. Where are we going? Because if we want to go to e6 to play d5, that just doesn't... Yeah, that's what he wants to do. Yeah, that's the wrong break. That's the wrong break. We wanted to play b5. We wanted to play b5, and again, what we are after is asymmetry. So not take with the pawn, take with the king. Because now we have got a greater mass here, and with a potential a4 push, we can eliminate these two. That makes this a passed pawn. That's an asset. Right, so let's say knight e1 here, here, and you go a4. And we have created a passed pawn no matter what white does. Yeah, wrong direction. It's very unfortunate that, yeah, we went here king c7. Kiddo went back to c1. Wow, man. Like, this is looking beyond desperate. I mean, okay, so after take, we have got a double attack, right? But that's still only a pawn for the exchange. And I'm really, really super worried that, let's say I go king g2, this knight goes, let's say, takes, I play blah, and then I play f4. I'm gonna isolate this pawn, I'm gonna take it, and we are dead. Example, knight c5, f4. Take, king here. And note that we still have 0 passed pawns, by the way, and yeah, like this is, yeah. So the reason why this is a really, really bad move is because not only is it unsound, but it was by no means the only way to keep on playing for a win. Like here, Nelson has made a huge blunder, not only in terms of the move itself, but from a strategic chess competitive point of view, because we can just play normal pawn moves like this, incidentally another sack, and still keep the position incredibly complex and very much a scenario where we are definitely pushing for a win without inviting the slightest hint of a counterplay or a loss even. Whereas yeah, rook f3, this is begging for trouble. Okay, so let's see what happened. Friend played king g2, we took, friend played rook c3, we played knight c5, and now f4 is carnage. And he has found it. I think that this must have been the idea that Nelson overlooked. He must have thought that he is just gonna play b5, b4 and outmuscle the rook with the knight, pawn and king trio. But f4 is on, man. And unfortunately we can't even try to lock the king in like this because there is f3 and also f5 running. Yeah. Ay, 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 ay. Yeah, that was tragic. That was really, really tragic. And even if you wanna commit, okay. Now I understand why he did it. Because after rook c2, Nelson was worried that now the knight was free to go. And so if you don't have a clear vision of how to proceed here with black, then all you see is that now white has knight e1, knight d3, and then I have got nothing. Absolutely nothing. Which is not necessarily accurate, but it feels a bit depressing. And so he felt like it's now or never, which is quite far from the truth. Actually, wait, I'm talking nonsense, because he actually didn't capture it then. He captured it when the rook dropped back to c1, when it was completely unnecessary in the sense that now the knight can't move, so any black move would still disallow the knight to move as long as I stay here. Even more perplexing. Oh yeah, of course, so he did it now because he could jump into d2. Right, so that was the justification. So in fact, okay, I get it. So he played king c7, already wanting to take this, and this is a pass to wait for the rook to go back. Which is quite ironic, by the way, because king f1 would have been a 10 times better pass from white's perspective, irrespective of the value of the exchange sack. But they did drop back, and now Nelson thought that this was the time to go. But I think he completely overlooked f4, and I think that we are just irreparably dead lost here. Okay, so we have seen a take, and e4. And now f5, f3, you name it, is gonna be terminal. f3 played, very good. He's playing now good chess, but again, the moves are easy. So the idea is simply to allow the king to come in. Nelson plays d5, And now we just take e4. The knight can't take back. The pawn will have to take back, and then king f2, king e3, and it's just not enough. It is just not enough. The fact that white has a passed pawn and also an incredibly weak black pawn on h4 means that we are doomed here. King f2 correct. So the e pawn is forever blockaded, and this is both slow and not dangerous enough. King d6, king e3, and so once we play b5, even king d4 is going to pose a dangerous problem. So actually we can't even push. Because if we push king d4, the knight can't move because this drops. But it has to move because otherwise the knight itself drops. So now we are completely in lockdown. The pawn can't go. If the king goes sideways, then rook c4. And now the rook is sneaking in slowly but surely. I can also then play a4 to blockade the pawns. Yeah, this was a very, very tragic outcome. It's a heartbreaker. And Nelson has had a lot more winning chances than I initially thought. Because after the lot of toing and froing in that rook and knight endgame scenario, we had the rook d8 trick with c6. Then we had multiple breaks with a5, a4. So, yeah, we had a lot of opportunities. Did he play king d5? No, okay. I thought they were talking rook c1. Very good. Now the rook is coming in here, here. It's all over. If we try b5, lots of moves work. Rook here is one of them, luring the king forward and then starting the pawn match. And again, the black knight has got too many duties. It is meant to guard the pawn, meant to support the pawn advance, and also meant to catch this guy. So now b4, take, up, and I have to come back and it all falls apart. Yeah, Nelson plays b5, and f5 is the response. Also correct. So now I can't go this way because then the knight hangs. If I go knight d7, then this check is extremely obnoxious, forcing the king back here. And now I can just take e4. Yeah, unfortunately, this is completely resignable by now. A really, really tragic turn of events with that extremely unfortunate exchange sack on f3. Yeah, he sat on this position for like a long, long time. b4, take is gonna come, and then f6 is going to be played. Once again, forcing one of the forward pieces to go back. It has to be the knight because obviously king back is hanging the knight. And once the knight retreats, it's free reign again for the rook. We can go for this pawn, we can go after this and support this, whatever. I would like to paint a picture for you here that, yeah, we still have the two passed pawns and hope dies last, but no, this is all over. Oh, he didn't even take. He played f6 without capturing. I'm surprised by it. I would have definitely preferred take just to keep it clean, but there is nothing wrong with f6. We have to drop the knight back and then he can take. The reason why we have to drop the knight back because now white is threatening to take. For example, take, check. Maybe this is why he did it. And after king takes, here, and this is a check promotion. So actually it's quite, in fact, in hindsight and in retrospect, it's a cute trick that he didn't take but played this. Because now he has got this idea of taking the knight and then running in. Very cute, very cute. Yep, knight d7. And now probably will take and then f7 or f7 first, doesn't matter. Yep, okay, so skip a few moves there. Take, rook c7, and king e6 played. Now f7. Wait, what? No, sorry, my bad. Take, f7, king e6, and then rook c7. Very neatly played by white here. So f7, king e6, and then rook c7 with the idea that now you can't take because the knight hangs. And additionally to that, we are threatening to take the knight and then promote the queen. And in fact, against that plan, the only remedy to be had is to drop the knight back on f8, but that completely surrenders everything to white. And now I can just go and eat that pawn if I want to, and just win with ease. Knight f8 was played. Oh yeah, king takes played, b3 played, and king back. So now white has time to just walk back for this pawn, and then walk all the way back and eat this one as well. The king can't go too far away, because then I will hit the knight. So Nelson went up. And now, unfortunately, after rook c8, it's all over Red Rover. Knight has to go. Promotion, rook takes, and white is going to be upper rook. And so I expect Nelson to resign here. He played instead b2, king c2. But now we are nearing the end. I think king f6, yeah, rook f8, king g7, rook random. Maybe rook h8, take and take. Yep. No, he went check. I don't like that move, but it doesn't matter. I would have played rook h8. Can't take because of here, and if takes, then takes. Rook g8 takes it one move slower, and then here. Oh! Hello, cheeky! Hello! Nelson played king h7. What an absolute monster you are. That is genius. So what he is cooking here is that after queen, we have got queen and stalemate. Now, what white has messed up here, unfortunately, Nelson resigned just there then, is that instead of giving a check, which they did, which is good enough, they could have played king b1, and now the trap shuts on black, because now we have a queen, and then we have a mate in 2. But they played rook h8 check, which was just as good. And unfortunately, Nelson had to resign, as after king takes, we've got a new queen. Right, what a game. What a game it was, folks. A fairly interesting opening that then turned not that great due to a few early mishaps, such as b6. Let's not stop there. Let's go back here. And then knight c6, queen d8 had to be played. This was very unfortunate. And the opponent had the upper hand. Then this trade basically allowed us to be easily back in the game. Then here we, I think, missed an opportunity to trade down into a slightly, ever so slightly better endgame. Then we entered an endgame scenario that was definitely drawish. And here we missed a fair number of opportunities with h4. White missed some as well. And then with playing for a5, a4. That was very, very interesting. Then here we missed a huge opportunity with rook d8. That would have been absolutely bonkers. And even after that, in this endgame scenario, we had multiple ways of breaking the queen side. My favorite one being b5, a4. This would have been absolutely nuts. And bringing in the king and having an absolute field day on the king side. And unfortunately, oh boy, this exchange sack just, yeah, it really wasn't it. I am very, very afraid to say that Nelson completely overlooked f4. Because if he had seen it, there is no way he would have went for it. No way he would have gone for it. And yeah, after this, it was just an easy victory. So I hope you guys enjoyed the commentary. I tried to do my best. This was the first time I've ever done such a long video, so I don't know how it's all gonna turn out. But thank you very much for listening and going through Nelson's game with me. 6 more rounds to go. So boy, do I have a lot to still record, but I'm excited to do so. So I look forward to seeing you again in game too. Please don't forget to like, to comment down below, to subscribe to the channel, mine as well. And yeah, I will see you in the next one soon. Bye.
What's up, guys? That was a tough game. It was like a 4-hour game. It's always painful losing such long games, right? Because you feel like, man, I just wasted all that time. You think and you make all these decisions, and then you just throw it away with like one bad decision. To be fair, my opponent didn't really give me any opportunities. You could see the chart there, like just at the end when I sacked my rook was like the best opportunity that I had, but it was very small. And I mean, what am I going to do? Like, they played a great game. I guess I don't feel too bad when I see that. I will say, in hindsight, obviously, rook takes f3 was a bad decision, but I didn't see what I was going to do. If I didn't sack this, I really didn't see how I was going to get through. The only idea that I had in my mind was like somehow try to play a4 to undermine, the pawn structure. But like after this, apparently c5 is really good for me. I just didn't see it. Like, I guess I missed something. d5 now is what Stockfish wants. Like, what is happening? I'm just giving away all my pawns for some reason. Like, I wasn't following, I guess, the game here. I don't know. So I didn't see that, and I felt like this was a good way to break through. Now I'm at least getting one pawn back. Maybe I can get an extra one. And the real thing that I missed here, guys, was this f4 plan. This idea of just sacking the pawn to just bust everything open and let the king and the rook into the game. Totally didn't think about it when I sacked my rook. I thought there's no way that he's going to be able to get the rook into the game easily. And then it was just like, no, f4, super easy plan. And I missed this. And then even here, I thought I could play e4 and keep things locked out, but no, f3. And I'm like, all of a sudden, I'm just lost. Just like that. It happened so fast. So that's pretty frustrating. I mean, I think, we were headed towards a draw if I didn't do that, unless I could have. I do have, 4 against 3, so maybe there's some chances here to create a pass pawn, but I was having a hard time seeing how it was going to happen. So I don't know, tough game. It happens, and I got to try to bounce back, and 6 more rounds to go. So we're just getting started. But yeah, I mean, I didn't feel like my opponent played like an 1800, unless this is what 1800s players play like these days. Like I don't know. Anyway, well played to them, and I'll see you guys in round 2. Thanks.